In case you didn't get an opportunity to see it, this is the press conference that the governor of Minnesota gave regarding the shooting of the gentleman in Minnesota last night.
Philando Castile, and I express on behalf of all decent-minded Minnesotans, which is just about everyone, our deepest condolences, our shock and our horror at what transpired last night. All the facts aren't known, but from the evidence that's been presented, the video that was taken, nobody should be shot and killed in Minnesota for a traffic tail light being out of function. Nobody should be shot and killed while they're seated still in their car without a very, very different kind of response. So I'm heartbroken for Minnesota because I've heard in the last few hours from very distinguished African American men and women who have recounted to me how they've been pulled over, singled out, and treated very differently because of their race from how white Minnesotans expect to be covered. Would this have happened if those passengers, the driver and the passenger, were white? I don't think it would have. So I'm forced to confront, and I think all of us in Minnesota are forced to confront, that this kind of racism exists. And that it's incumbent upon all of us to vow that we're going to do whatever we can to see that it doesn't happen, it doesn't continue to happen. I met with I talked with the White House Chief of Staff, Dennis McDonough. We just finished talking with Special Assistant Valerie Jarrett, who called to express the President's personal concern and see if they could do to help. I talked with the Assistant Attorney General, U.S. Attorney General, Anita Gupta, on 3 occasions. Talked about their involvement. Their role is not to be the primary conductor of the investigation. That will reside with the BCA, but they will be closely monitoring and providing whatever assistance is desired and necessary. The BCA under Commissioner Dolman is following through with the greatest sense of urgency, time urgency, to pursue this and conduct a complete and thorough investigation, turn that investigation over to the Ramsey County attorney, who will make his decisions accordingly. I talked with the Senator Franken, Senator Klobuchar, Representative McCollum, Representative Ellison, 5 of us, Lieutenant Governor, 6 of us, who had a conference call just a short while ago for drafting a letter that will sign jointly, and then we'll go to the Attorney General, U.S. Attorney General, asking for this investigation or participation on behalf of the Department of Justice and the federal government in this matter. I can't say how seriously I take this. I can't say how shocked I am and how deeply offended that this would occur in Minnesota to somebody who got pulled over for a taillight being out of order, and how totally unacceptable it is by all the standards and values that I hold dear and that I treasure about this state, that such a terrible incident could occur and did occur, and this life is irrevocably taken away. So when I met with some of the people who are gathered outside the governor's residence earlier today, they said that they wanted justice, and I will vow that they will receive justice. And I don't know what course that takes. That will depend upon all the facts and circumstances, but that justice will be served. Justice must be served in this instance if we're going to have a chance to repair the terrible damage that's been done to the relationships we all have with men and women of other races and creeds. And I will do everything I can to see that it comes about. Commissioner Allen? No? respond to questions.
Governor, your statement today seems much stronger than it was during Mark Clark. Can you outline what you see kind of in the framework of what we see in the video? What is so outraged today that we did not hear during Mark Clark? Today, you were saying that you believe there's a racial component to this. I did not hear you say that with Mark Clark. What makes this case different? Is it just the video?
Well, I'm not going to go back into that. But I'll just say what I saw in the video. The video was, I told Woman Diamond just how extraordinary I thought her poise and presence was to both make that recording, the way she responded to the police in that situation. And I mean, that presented a very, it didn't show obviously the incident itself occurring, the shooting of the weapon, but it showed immediate aftermath of that. And then she recounted in the press that we had this morning at the in front of the residents that, that Philando was not given first aid. Nobody attended to his condition as they were attending to the condition of the police officer who did the shooting. She was handcuffed and taken to police station with her four-year-old daughter. I mean, it's just the stark treatment. I find it absolutely appalling at all levels.
You agree with President Obama issuing statements today saying that this is not an isolated act, but rather part of the systemic problem in prison law enforcement. Your statement today seems to suggest that you also somewhat agree with them. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that statement and whether you agree that there are some problems here in Minnesota.
Well, I think we've had these incidents now that prove that these problems do exist in Minnesota. The vast majority of our law enforcement officers, of all colors, races, creeds, religions, are dedicated, and they confront difficult situations every day and every night, and they conduct themselves lawfully and honorably. And one terrible misjudgment or failure of proper action, whatever it turned out to be, could not be allowed to cast aspersions on every other law enforcement officer in Minnesota. But in this instance, again, I don't have all the facts and evidence. I'm not passing a final judgment, but there's every indication in this case that the police response was way in excess of what the situation called for. Certainly being pulled over with a traffic light defect and not having even exited the vehicle, much less taken any action that could be visibly seen or construed as being an act by the victim of aggression against the police officer, then to be shot in the car with 4 or 5 bullets is just it's just beyond the pale. It's just so far beyond the pale.
But again, I mean, you don't believe that it's part of a more systemic problem? I
think it's more than an isolated instance, and that's why, as I said before, there are others who have shared with me just even this today. So, one of the ways in which we can we can't ever remedy the situation, but try to move forward with it would be to look at the training, the community policing. As President Obama in his statement referenced his task force he established on community policing a couple of years ago and their recommendations. I asked for a copy to review those recommendations and look very seriously at convening a similar task force or group to look at those issues on behalf of Minnesota. But that's premature. That's not why I'm here today. We don't have solutions today. We have a recognition of a serious problem and a terrible, terrible tragedy, and a resolve that I want everyone to know that we are going to pursue this matter all the way to conclusion.
Can you elaborate on the process, what has been done so far, and what else needs to be done?
I'll let Commissioner Doman, who's in charge of DCA.
For the record, my name is Mona Doman, the Commissioner of Public Safety, and I oversee the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. Last night, the St. Anthony interim police chief contacted the BCA and requested that the BCA conduct the independent investigation of this officer-involved shooting. Agents were sent out to the scene to begin the investigation, and they have been working through the night and through the day to collect all of the evidence, to do a thorough and expedited investigation. I talked with the superintendent several times today, and we have had discussions with the lieutenant governor and with the governor regarding the need for expediency, but thoroughness in collecting all of the evidence, putting that evidence together, and then presenting that to the county attorney for review.
Can you elaborate on that? Does that include any what sort of camera footage of possible interviews? Can you elaborate what sort of things you're
Because it's an ongoing and active investigation, that is not public information, and I can't disclose that at this time. And I don't have all the facts. I have not been to the scene. I have not reviewed any of the evidence.
Should you confirm whether he did in fact have a permit of Mr. Castile, whether he did in fact have a permit to carry the family consent, and if you can't confirm that because it's part of the ongoing investigation, can you explain, because a lot of that information is not public for various reasons, but with the officers on their MDT, on their mobile display terminal, would they have known whether the driver of that vehicle, whether he would have had a permit to carry?
What I can say is that the information that the sheriff's offices hold across the state of Minnesota, because they are the ones that issue the permits to carry, and then we have that information at the BCA, that information is not public information under the data privacy laws, and it is part of the investigation. I do not know what the officers knew when he stopped the vehicle. I don't know what he knew at that time, and it also would depend on who the vehicle registered to and who the driver was. So I don't know.
I'll tell you this, if the gentleman, Mr. Castile, was driving his own vehicle, which he probably was, and they ran that vehicle's plates, and so who owned that vehicle, I can tell you for a fact that they knew that he had a concealed carry permit.
Yet, have the officers on scene there last night been at least preliminarily interviewed at this point?
It is my understanding that the agents were working on that to do that this afternoon. I don't know if that interview or those interviews have been conducted at this point in time.
Commissioner, what has been done since the Clark shooting to prevent situations like this? And you already have plans in place for some more education or whatever you might do? Go into that a little bit.
I can say that from speaking with police chiefs and sheriffs across the state of Minnesota, that they all take these situations very seriously, and training in their agencies is a priority for them. I can't speak specifically to what each individual agency has done or not, but there probably isn't a chief law enforcement officer in the state that isn't paying attention and considering policy or writing policy, drafting policy to make sure that their officers are properly trained and properly responding and properly building relationships and solidifying relationships in the communities that they serve.
Please speak to where the gun was recovered from the scene, where the scene was found.
That is all part of the active investigation. I cannot.
Can you speak to how this being broadcast Facebook Live, how that affects your investigation and even just your reaction to that, knowing what they called it?
Well, I think public opinion is different because the public has seen that video. And I would say that it is part of the investigation and part of the evidence that will be collected by the Bureau. And the agents will review all of the information that they have, document it all, and then it will be presented to the county attorney, John Choi's office, for review without recommendation from the BCA. So our job is to collect the evidence and present it for review by the prosecuting attorney.
Commissioner, can you confirm what the original purpose of the traffic stop was? Obviously, Castile's girlfriend had said in that video that it was 4 of us who came up. Is that the case?
I cannot confirm that.
Governor, this video obviously does not show the moment that Mr. Castile is reaching for his wallet or anything that happens before the shoot. We obviously don't know that. I can hear the police, you said that there was no known act of aggression by Mr. Castile. That was your comment a few minutes ago. I can hear the police union in the back of my head saying, well, how do we know that? I ask you, are you prejudging this based on the aftermath that you've seen in the video? And do you believe that unfairly is establishing the framework with which we go forward in the public discussion of this?
Well, I said it at the outset, I don't know if there is any footage. I've not seen anything that relates to the incident before that video began. I'm expressing a view based on the information I have at this point. All that's why, as Commissioner Doman said, a thorough, complete investigation is underway and needs to be completed, and all the facts need to be brought to light. I'm responding, just what, 16 hours after, 18 hours after this terrible tragedy occurred, but it is a terrible tragedy, and my feelings about it, and my sense of outrage for what occurred is very real, and that if that needs to be modified based on further information, I'll modify it. But at this point, this is how I assess it, and this is what I believe.
Governor, it's been said that words are hollow, and people want to know what direct action are you prepared to take, and also you mentioned that this is a low impact stop. What actions are you prepared to take to reduce the number of traffic stops when it comes to people of color?
Well, in this instance, again, in a very short period of time, we've contacted the White House Chief of Staff, Special Assistant in the White House, the Assistant U.S. Attorney General, spoken with her 3 times, spoke with Senator Franken, Senator Klobuchar, Representative Allison, Representative McCollum. We drafted a letter the Lieutenant Governor and I are signing, and the 4 of them sending to the Attorney General, U.S. Attorney General, asking him for their full involvement, and we will continue to pursue that, which I think is the most immediate first step that can be and must be taken to assure that this gets the maximum scrutiny possible from, and I know it will occur from the BCA because the Commissioner is giving me that assurance, but also the federal government, and that all of federal and state investigative capabilities are brought to bear on this situation. I don't have an answer for you beyond that. I think that, as I said, the training, and I don't know what training occurs not, but that is certainly part of it, because it's still going to be a human face-to-face interaction that's going to occur out there on the street or in a car or whatever. And so the better training and better understanding of those dynamics is something that I intend to pursue. I'll have more information. I have more information. I can't ask me to compare what I said before. You have to play it back for me.
Information that we don't have?
No, just the chance I had to hear what has been said and to process the information and have a chance to think about it, to have a chance to piece it together.
Governor, we love that the DOJ kind of is taking a secondary role, at least their response seems to be. I think they got immediately involved in that, and they seem to be taking a step back on this one. Does that go to you? And 2, do you think this officer should be in jail today?
I'm not going to comment on the second. I think that's what's important is that justice be served, and it's going to take a little time to do that. We're not vigilantes in this day and age. We don't just corral people and deny them due process and put them in prison or worse. This is a lawful society, and even in instances like this, it's incumbent upon all of us, especially those of us in positions of public responsibility, to conduct ourselves in accordance with the law, state of law. As the Commissioner said, respecting the rights to privacy and the like. So I'm not in a position to say regarding that. What was the first part?
Unfortunately, Mr. Castile didn't get due process. That officer acted as judge, jury, and executioner, and he got the decision wrong, absolutely wrong.
It's about the DOJ.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, this I'm told is, and the Assistant U.S. Attorney General emphasized this, that this is their usual role. If there's, and I'm not going to get into Louisiana because I'm not familiar enough, but there are circumstances there that cause them, I'm told, additional concern.
All right, at this point, the video was lost, so a couple of things I want to jump in on, and the first thing is, if you don't remember the Jamar Clark case, Jamar Clark was shot. He was unarmed and shot, and the excuse used was he was trying to obtain the officer's gun when he was shot. and there are a lot of eyewitness accounts that dispute that, but the district attorney chose not to pursue it and brought the case to the grand jury, where obviously he didn't push for an indictment because of the officers involved being white, Jamar Clark being black, and after an altercation, paramedics being called for a dispute between his ex-girlfriend and current girlfriend, police being called, and I guess you can say an altercation occurred, which ended up with him being shot on the ground, with the police claiming that he was trying to get one of the officers' guns. That absolutely cannot be used here. So the main question that's going to have to be answered here is how fast are they going to be able to compile all the evidence and come to a decision on what they want to do. The second question is, where is the police union going to be on this? If this were the NYPD in New York, the statements that the governor just made would have them screaming blue murder. So let's see how reasonable the police union in Minnesota is. Now, as far as statement I made earlier, I absolutely believe if Mr. Castile was driving his own car, they knew exactly who they were pulling over, and they knew that he had a concealed carry permit. They may not have known that he had a weapon on him at the time, but all of his particulars were there. Why do I say that? Shortly after I changed locations, i.e. I moved from California to Texas, and I had obtained my own concealed carry permit, I was pulled over by the county police. I was moving stuff back and forth, and I had a car full of like my suits and stuff. I was moving a little bit at the time. Officer pulls me over for speeding, which, you know, I was, but the good thing about Texas is there's no absolute speed limit. So you can speed as long as you do so safely based on conditions. So bottom line, I didn't end up with a ticket, but the officer wanted to search my car, etc., etc., etc. Well, I didn't have anything to hide, and I didn't feel like screwing around, so I told him, yeah, fine. So, you know, he opened the my back door to my car, and I had like nothing but clothes and stuff there and in my trunk. He looks through it. He said, "All these yours?" I said, "Yeah." You know, and I explained to him, you know, that I work in the business field, so obviously, you know, I needed a lot of, you know, clothes. I popped the trunk. At that time, I didn't have any weapons in the car, so he's going through the trunk. He doesn't find anything. So, you know, I was cooperative. But he still tried to pull a little something on me to make me uncomfortable. He told me that, you know, he was going to let me go without a ticket, but that I had a warrant out on me. I said, "Warrant? What are you talking about, warrant? I don't have any warrants out on me." I knew I was, you know, absolutely clean. He said, "You have a warrant on you from New York." Okay, which is where I'm from originally. I said, "I don't have any warrants, you know, in New York." So he says, "Well, you know, you probably need to go take care of that warrant." Now, if I had a warrant on me, he would have arrested me right on the spot on that warrant, right? And I thought about that. I said, "Nah, that, you know, what he's telling me is bullshit," right? So I was in the car, got out of the car. He knew I had no weapons, so I approached his car, and he had, as all police cars have now, a computer terminal, you know, and my name was up on the screen. So I got to take a look at that screen. My entire history, I'm talking about traffic tickets, times that I was arrested, and the fact that I had a concealed carry license, they were all up on that screen. and that concealed carry license was flashing. So I don't know what that was, but anyway, I challenged him on that warrant. So he turned around and quote unquote looked again and, no, you didn't have a warrant. I see that you had a case when you were a minor that was dismissed. And I asked him, I said, nobody's supposed to be able to see that, because when I was a minor, I had a situation, and I was not guilty, and I had a great lawyer who got my record sealed. And I asked him, how did you know about that? And he said, well, we can see stuff that ordinary people can't see. So that just led me to believe that even though my information was sealed, quote unquote, it really wasn't sealed. So anyway, back to what I was saying. These cops have, if they can bring you up on their terminals, they can see everything that you've done throughout basically your entire life. So if you're a threat, they automatically know it when they run your license plate and pull you all the way up. Now I'm going to jump to the part with MSNBC discussing the governor's statement.
Okay, you've been listening there to the governor of Minnesota, Mark Dayton, responding to that police-involved shooting overnight. That's a press conference still continuing in St. Paul, the capital there of Minnesota. We've lost our audio, so we are going to pull out of that right now. But just the headlines, there's some strong statements from the governor. The governor saying that he was offended that this happened in Minnesota. He said at one point that he looked at this and concluded that if the driver who was shot had been white, he said, would this have happened? He said he concluded it wouldn't have happened if the driver were white, and he promised, he said that he vows that justice, that they will receive justice. Those looking for that in this case, those will receive, people will receive justice here. That's the governor of Minnesota. That press conference is continuing as we speak while we work on the audio situation there. Let's go to NBC's Joe Fryer. He's in St. Paul. So Joe, that is the strong comments there from the governor. Maybe people weren't necessarily expecting him to say exactly what he did there.
Absolutely, very strong comments. To be clear right now that this is the governor's mansion. The comments he gave are actually just down the road at the state capitol, and ever since this shooting became well known in the public, ever since the video was broadcast live on Facebook, crowds have been gathering here outside of the governor's mansion, a rotating group. Hundreds and hundreds of people have been coming through here, many of them taking turns speaking, sharing what's on their mind. We've heard people singing. We've even seen some of the relatives of Philando Castile and his fiance, who was the person who shot that live video, the aftermath of what happened. The governor's comments very strong. He came out here earlier to talk with the crowd. During that time, he said he has asked the Department of Justice to be involved in this. As you just heard from the governor, he says that the DOJ will have some sort of role of keeping tabs on what's happening, but the group that's investigating this is Minnesota's Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. Now, the governor is not the only one talking about what happened. We're hearing reaction from around the country, including President Obama, who posted a long message on Facebook reacting not just to this shooting, but also the one in Baton Rouge this week. In part, here's what President Obama said. What's clear is that these fatal shootings are not isolated incidents. They are symptomatic of the broader challenges within our criminal justice system, radical disparities that appear across the system year after year, and the resulting lack of trust that exists between law enforcement and too many of the communities they serve. The president goes on to say, to admit we've got a serious problem in no way contradicts our respect and appreciation for the vast majority of police officers who put their lives on the line to protect us every single day. It is to say that as a nation, we can and must do better to institute the best practices that reduce the appearance or reality of racial bias in law enforcement. Now, a lot of people are also taking time, of course, to remember the man who was shot and killed, Philando Castile. He actually worked as a supervisor in a cafeteria for an elementary school here in St. Paul. He's worked for the St. Paul School District for 14 years. Before that, he was a student in the St. Paul School District and graduated from high school here. The shooting actually happened about 7 miles from here in Falcon Heights, which is a suburb. The Falcon Heights, so small, it does not have its own police Police Department. So neighboring St. Anthony provides police services for Falcon Heights, and that also a small police department, only a couple dozen officers there. And right now what we know is that the State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension will be looking into what happened here, and you just heard the Public Safety Commissioner saying they want to make this as expeditious as possible to try and get results of this investigation passed along to the county attorney, who will ultimately make decisions on whether any charges would be filed in this case. Steve?
All right, NBC's Joe Fryer live in St. Paul.
All right, so they're not going to be able to get away from this one because that boy had a absolutely clean record. If it's reported that he had a concealed carry permit, and I believe that he did, based on the parents stating that, as well as the girlfriend, you absolutely have to have a clean record in order to get a concealed carry permit. I don't care what state you're in. And if he had as clean a record, they're not going to be able to disparage him. So that police officer may be in a hell of a lot of trouble. Now, the other thing that I wanted to bring up, President Obama can make all the statements that he wants to make, but he has failed to even figure out how big a problem he has. Why do I say that? Well, there's a little thing called that 1994 crime bill that had a relatively ignored feature in it. That feature stated that the Attorney General will publish on an annual basis the statistics for officer-involved shootings. And they have never complied with that portion of the law. So if he was really that gung-ho about the problem that we see, he could have easily pressed Congress for the necessary funds and made any federal funds distributed out to the various 10,000 police departments across the country, of which 80% received some type of federal funding. He would have made it a requirement by law, which it already is, in order to receive those funds, to comply with that law. So, you know, he's, again, making statements. He's got the ability to back them up, but he's not doing so.